Thank you everyone for coming today. My name is Ben Riley. I'm the founder of Cognitive Resonance. I've been telling people all day that this is going to be a hot session. I didn't know that was literally going to be true, so I apologize for that. We only have 20 minutes, and I'm going to try to cover 3 topics in a very brief amount of time. And really, we're going to be talking about human cognition, artificial intelligence, and revolution. So I actually want to start on the revolutionary theme. Is this changing? I can't tell. There we go. Thank you. I want you to think for a second about who teaches the revolutionaries. So this is a picture of someone, I don't know if you recognize her, but I'll give you her name in a second, and I bet you will actually know who this is. This is actually someone who I would say is teacher famous. And she's teacher famous because she had an amazing and incredible student. A student who developed the most profound biological impediments to cognition that are imaginable. And nonetheless, this teacher persisted in working with this student and turned her into a revolutionary. This is Anne Sullivan with her student Helen Keller. Now, I want you to think just for a moment about that famous scene that some of you are familiar with. When Helen Keller, and this actually happened, put her hand underneath and felt water flowing over it in one, and felt the hand of Anne Sullivan in the other, making a word. Anne Sullivan had been doing that for 5 weeks nonstop. Imagine what that was like for Helen Keller, age 5. Imagine the moment when she finally understood that that was a word. Now, the thing I want you to take from this story right now is to remember that Helen Keller was thinking before she could express that. The words were simply a way of communicating the thoughts in her head. Our children are thinking before they have learned to speak and to write. Writing is one of the most incredible technologies we've developed to share our thoughts with one another. But it is not thought itself. It's not. And I want you to think about that when people say, as the last speakers did in this presentation, about how AI will be thinking for you or can do these incredible things, can come to know you. They are assuming it can come backwards from the words to thought. I want to talk to you about another teacher. I'm pretty sure you don't know who this is. I can give you her name right now. I doubt very many of you will recognize it. Her name is Arilla Miller. She went by Bill. She taught at Public School 24 in New York City. And she had a student who was born with no biological impediments, but was born with every socio-cultural challenge America could throw at him at the time. He was black, gay, lived in poverty. Bill Miller recognized something in this student, brought him out of his home in Harlem, took him to Greenwich Village, showed him plays. Her student wrote his first play at age 11. She took him to protest. She was a socialist. One day, she took him to get ice cream from a local police station. The police refused to serve him because he was black. She did not leave. She sat there, and she shamed them until finally they gave her student Jimmy the ice cream. This is Bill Miller with James Baldwin. James Baldwin said he could never hate white people because of the relationship he had with this human teacher. This photo was taken in 1976, 200 years after the American Revolution and the year I was born. All right, now I want to bring you up to the present. This is a drawing of a teacher who's teaching today. I don't know literally today, but she's teaching. There's a drawing of her because she was in Edutopia because she became teacher famous last year. Why did she become teacher famous? Her name is Chinea Bond. She's teaching in Texas. And she went on social media and said, when it comes to AI, we're not doing it in my classroom. She teaches writing. We're not doing it at all. And everyone, ooh, really? Why not? Well, she made it very clear. She teaches writing. We write because we have thoughts we want to share with one another. AI is a tool of cognitive automation and substitution. It replaces the need for writing. The last speakers who were in here from OpenAI spoke glowingly how 1/3 of college students are using ChatGPT. Why? Why are they using it? I think I know why. Now, if you came here because the session promised I'd warn you about education hazards of generative AI, I'm going to do a little bait and switch here. I don't have enough time to go into the other hazards beyond the one that Mrs. Bond has identified, but I can give you a QR code. This is a document I put out last year that alerts you to hazards that go beyond just the one that Ms. Bond has identified. There are many. There are many. Some of which you're familiar with, but we have a tendency to hand wave them away. If you find anything I say compelling today, I do full workshops built around this to unpack these hazards and the dangers that they pose in education. But that's not what I'm going into today. Today, I want to talk about another revolution, the cognitive revolution, and what it portends right now, and the relationship between technology and society. Okay? So, cognitive architecture. We're going so fast here, y'all. This is bad pedagogy, so you're just going to have to roll with me. This is what the cognitive scientist Dan Willingham calls just about the simplest possible model of the mind. I don't know how many of you can see it. I thought the screen would be bigger in here, but basically, at its fundamental, it says we have a mind, we have our memory, our long-term memory, we take in information from the environment. You are taking in information from me now, and it activates in our working memory, our consciousness. That which we remember, we call learning. That which we do not, we call forgetting. That is the basic model of the mind. It does not get much simpler than that. Then, I have created this. I have created this. I call this the simplest possible model of generative AI. If you can come up with a simpler model than this, get in touch with me. Humans prompt a device. A device has been trained on information from the internet. It does something called transform, and then out comes an output. I hope what you can see from this is the surface similarity between these two things. Norbert Wiener, the famous cyberneticist, said, "The thought of every age is reflected in its technique." We can see here similarities between how we conceive of our own minds and what generative AI does. And that's the danger. That's the danger, because we think these two things are the same. Now I'm going to tell a quick story about a cognitive revolution taking place right now. What you can see over here, I hope you can see it, it's pretty small, is a story that until relatively recently would be, how did we get this cognitive architecture? And it goes very simply like this. We have bodies, we are creatures, we are animals, we evolve. So we evolved our brains and our minds, and that gives us our cognitive architecture, and then we get together like this and we create a culture. The causal arrow goes like this. And just to make it clear, this is when I say cognitive architecture, I'm talking about this. But now, there is a bit of a revolution taking place right here as we speak around our understanding of this that goes like this. Actually, the role that biology plays, that evolution plays, is much smaller than we thought. It's not to say it doesn't exist. We are still animals. We obviously do this. But actually, it's the interaction between culture and us that literally shapes our cognitive architecture. Now, if your own cognitive architecture is spinning right now, I understand. It's a lot to throw at you. So I'm going to try to make it real with a specific example. Shakespeare. We all speak English. At least if you're listening and understanding to me, it means you speak English. Shakespeare has dominated the English-speaking world for hundreds of years. Several decades ago, the scholar Harold Bloom wrote a very interesting book where he said, Shakespeare, subtitle, Invention of the Human. Invention of the Human. Now, what he meant by that, and what you can see from this quote, is that he is contending, that prior to Shakespeare in Western English literature, there was no concept of interiority, that we could not have a dialogue with ourselves, and that he actually invented that through Hamlet and Falstaff, and that gave us this notion of interiority. Now, you could disagree with that. Some people do disagree with that. The point is, we can argue about it. We can argue about what culture and how culture shapes who we are. So, the question becomes, how will AI shape who we are? Now, there are some people who have been predicting revolution coming from AI for quite some time. For example, Bill Gates. He was here, this very conference, 2 years ago, where he said, well, you can see it right here, within 18 months, we will have tutors who can teach kids to read. That was 2 years ago, so we should have had those 6 months ago. Hasn't happened. My friend Dan Meyer says I'm being a little unfair to Bill Gates. He said something slightly more nuanced to that. The headline writers got a little carried away. That happens in journalism sometimes. But here's the thing. Go back 10 years, and Bill Gates was making the same prediction. Only it wasn't AI. It was big data analytics. And people came to conferences like this and nodded their heads the same way they're doing right now for all of that. Personalized learning. I stood up at some personal cost and said, that isn't going to work because of what I understand about human cognition. And most of my team said, oh, we're not going to lose funding if you say that too loudly. But I was right. Is Mark, are we seeing Mark up here? This man knows nothing about teaching. And yet he's saying that like machines can watch over us, machines of loving grace, without any sense of irony. This man knows nothing about pedagogy. Here's someone who knows a little something, but has seemed to learn nothing in the last 10 years. He's been saying the same thing. He's been making the same predictions that Bill Gates has been making. Personalized learning first, a global schoolhouse second. Prediction after prediction is wrong, and yet you keep buying his books. Not you literally, but you know, the greater you. But here's the real thing that gets me about all this. Brave New Words? Have you read Huxley? I mean, seriously, have you read Huxley? Do you understand the point of that book? Why do we have dystopian descriptions? The future that Huxley imagined was different than Orwell's. Huxley's imagination was a society so pacified by technology and drugs that they wouldn't want books to read. And you titled your book after that? And then there's this. I want you to soak that in. When we talk about revolutions, will AI revolutionize education? There is a right-wing revolution taking place in the United States of America right now, and this man sits at the heart of it. And he has made it very clear what's coming next. And so we learn at the speed of light. I am grateful that ASU+GSV invited me here today. This will be the last time. I was going to try to throw them a little bit under the bus by pulling all of the AI-related hype titles that I could find for the 3-day conference. I got through half a day on Monday, and I stopped. And then I thought about a word I don't like to think about. What does it mean to be complicit? Why did the use of the word complicit spike at the time of the Civil War in the United States, and then decline, and then start to grow again over the last several decades? I couldn't find more recent data. I am very curious what it would say over the last 5 years. I disagree with my more radical friends, believe it or not, I have a few, who say that any injustice that we don't take a stand against, we are complicit in. I don't agree with that at all. There is so much injustice in the world, we only have time to bite off what we can bite off and try to address. But the question is, for all of us, myself included, why are we here? Fiction helps us understand ourselves. Shakespeare, it could be said, helps us understand ourselves. Philip Roth helps me understand this moment. This is from the cover of a book he wrote 25 years ago, The Plot Against America. In that book, Philip Roth imagines a counterfactual history where Charles Lindbergh is elected president during World War II. And Charles Lindbergh, both in reality and in the book, is a Nazi sympathizer. In the book, Charles Lindbergh appoints to his cabinet, the most powerful man in his cabinet, the richest man in the world, who happens to be a car magnate named Henry Ford, also a racist and an anti-Semite. The opening lines of this novel is that a sense of fear presides over these memories. Perpetual fear. Do you know her name? Do you know her name? This is Rumeysa Öztürk. She's being held as a political prisoner of the United States of America right now. A sense of fear. Perpetual fear. A sense of fear. Perpetual fear. This was not smuggled out by some underground. This was from a video made by the President of the United States of America and publicized. This is the revolution that is taking place in the United States of America right now. AI is not going to revolutionize education, but may throw fuel like gasoline onto the fire that has been lit. I think usually at sessions like these, it is common for speakers to try to leave on a note of optimism and hope. I have none for you. But I can try to educate. Does anyone know who this is? Anyone? This is Ursula Franklin. She was a survivor of the Holocaust. Her mother's family was not. Slaughtered, wiped out to a person. She was a metallurgist. In fact, she studied ancient metallurgy, China in particular, the use of humans making things with their hands. And she wrote and thought about technology. If you take nothing away from this today, go find her work. Go find her Massey lectures. Listen to her. She was warning us. What she said was that technology is not just a tool. It's a system. It's a mindset. It's an ideology. And I ask you again, a conference like this, what role does it play in the system, in the mindset, in the ideology that has brought America to its knees? And what will you do about it after today? That's all I have.